Right. So earlier we discussed the two important factors which contributed to the making of the European Renaissance, namely the contribution of the Arab scholars and the Crusades, which resulted in the widening of intellectual horizons, linguistic horizons of the people who had so far not really been exposed to the life outside their villages or outside their geographical areas. Now we'll see the third factor, which is the contribution of various intellectuals from Europe. Primarily, these intellectuals belonging to the religious, organized church kind of setup. Um, Here one can see Thomas Aquinas, who belonged to the 13th century. He's somebody who's famous for rejuvenating, retelling of Aristotle's worldview. That is, things, uh, you know what the gestures mean, right? In the picture on the right side, you can see who's this? Who's this person?
Plato.
Old fellow? And who's the younger fellow?
Aristotle.
Okay. And why are they gesturing, one towards the heavens and other towards the earth? Anybody who had philosophy as a minor subject in their graduation?
No, ma'am.
Talks in terms of understanding the world with the help of forms, with the help of FORMS forms. He of course he said a lot of things about a lot many subjects, but here the indication is basically about how one can understand the world with the help of concept. So I may not know if Jolene is sitting in this class. I may not know if Akshay is sitting in this class, if Utkarsh Anushri is sitting in this class, but I know that my students are attending this class. And Jolene, Akshay, Utkarsh, Anushri, all of you are students. So I understand that students are attending this class. What I'm trying to say is that I'm not, in this example, I'm not looking at you guys as individuals, but I'm looking at you as a form, a concept, that is students. Once I have understood what a student is like, my behavior, my understanding, my method of speaking, my manner of behavior in general will be determined by this understanding of the form that you guys are students. So I may not know if Zothan is actually online or not, but I will know that my students are online, and based on that understanding of the form, the concept of a student, I will behave accordingly. So Plato's understanding is that world can be understood with the help of forms. You may or may not know the individual cases, but you can understand the world with the help of forms. Hence he is gesticulating, indicating his finger upwards towards the skies, that is the higher reality of being a form. And on the right side, you can see Aristotle gesturing towards the earth, towards the ground. What he felt and he propounded, he professed, was that world can and should be understood with the help of ground reality, not through forms. I mean, yes, forms also, because one needs all those commonalities, but one needs to understand the world with the help of ground reality. Unless and until you have actual observations, you cannot really understand the reality. That is Aristotle's worldview. Now, Aristotle and Plato obviously belong to the what century BC? These two guys, time period?
3rd, 4th century.
What's the time? Yeah, 4th century BC, before Common Era. and Thomas Aquinas writing in the 13th century, right? 13th century. So 13 plus those 4 centuries, 1700 years after Plato and Aristotle were debating about how to understand the world, Thomas Aquinas is a religious leader, a religious person, thinker, and who feels that it's important to try and explain the worldview as seen by Aristotle. This is what we are speaking of when we discuss the relevance of Greco-Roman classics felt by the people belonging to the Renaissance period. They felt that whatever Aristotle might have felt is important for me living today in the 13th century. So this connection, ideological, intellectual connection, is very important when we. Aquinas is not the only person. There are many others who made ideological contributions to this method of understanding the scriptures, and this method has Buddhism, Plasticism. This is a method, not a philosophy like Sophists or Sufi people or whatever else, other kinds of philosophy. This is a method. Scholasticism is a method of understanding the text, understanding the given piece of knowledge. Now, what are the major features of this methodology? Major features are outlined here. That humans have the ability to understand the truth. This you will, because obviously if we don't have the ability, then who has the ability? But this is because you and I are products of the 21st century. Imagine yourself as a housewife or a serf in a village in Western Europe. And whatever is your worldview is determined by the elders, by the society and its customs, mores, norms, and your religious leaders. In such a condition, most likely, you would end up feeling that I am a nobody and whatever is happening in my life is completely dependent on the will of God with W capital and G capital, right? Do you agree? Medieval existence believing in the will of God as the cause of whatever happens in our lives.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody agree? Aishani? Zothan?
Ji, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So scholasticism is kind of opening new doors for people to believe in their own ability to understand the truth. It's not as if the priest is going to tell you what is the truth. It's not as if the tradition, your elders, your parents, your relatives are going to tell you what the world actually means. But we ourselves have the ability to understand the truth. So the focus here is shifting from outside to your own individual responsibility. And this is very, very important because this is a period of what we have now come to call as individualism, believing in the ability of the individual human being to do things, as against believing in the ability of the world outside to bring about changes in your life. So, for example, I'll just give you an example from our day-to-day life. Suppose tomorrow my son falls ill, he has fever. If I was a medieval housewife belonging to the 13th, 14th century, what would I do? Would I go to the doctor? Would I give him an injection, whatever? Or would I even prevent such a happening by giving him inoculations when he was a small child? Or would I go to the priest and ask the priest or the oracle, not oracle, but priest or whoever is the religious person to offer a cure for my son? What would I do? If I was living in the 13th century, my son falls sick?
Ma'am, one would pray and go to the priest.
I would pray and go to the priest. And now in the 21st century, what will I do?
One would pray and go to a doctor.
I will not pray, but I will go to the doctor. Individual choice. Yes, one can pray, of course,
Yeah.
and to the doctor. So, see, the difference here is that you are also you have the freedom to pray, but you are also relying a great deal on the expertise of the doctor, right?
Yeah.
Everybody agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right. So why this sudden change in my attitude from the 13th to the 21st century? How come suddenly I have stopped believing in all these religious things, and how come suddenly I have started believing in the doctors? Why this change?
Because of scientific advancement.
Anybody else?
Also, because, ma'am, there was a shift in understanding that, not everything happens because of God, and since humans are behind certain things that happen, they can also find a solution to it. So when the bubonic plague happened, everyone was like, yeah, this is God's deed, so we cannot do anything. But in today's pandemic, we are constantly trying to search for a vaccine. So there has been this shift, and I think it's also because of humanism, the studies of humanities वगैरह कि we have understood our own potential.
Understanding the potential of humans, that is the key here, right? Thank you, Manushree, and thank you, Utkarsh also. Any other answers, any other comments on this? Why the sudden change in the attitude?
Questioning the authorities. The authority of church or any religious thing.
Okay.
Not to blindly follow anything.
So faith has been replaced by, not exactly replaced, but we believe more. We also have faith, but we also have.
We have started questioning the faith. We have been taught to question the faith and everything else.
So one word for that would be reason.
Yeah, reason, right? Yeah.
Faith.
Yes.
And faith is something which tells you not to question. Like yesterday, we were speaking of the secularism and religious learning. Similarly, here the attitude has changed because we have learned to ask questions, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Now, scholasticism is inadvertently responsible for this change coming about. Why inadvertently? Because these people were not really concerned about secular thing. I mean, secularism and all those ideologies. They were very much steeped in religious interpretations, but the focus changed, as it says on the left side of the slide. The focus changed, and it gave some kind of an agency, some kind of a credit to humans that yes, you are capable of understanding the truth. It's not as if somebody has to bring it on a platter and present it before you that this is the gospel truth. You have the ability, the potential, as Anushri rightly pointed out. That is the key here, potential of the individual. Okay, then all the other points also, of course, of scholasticism. That world is a valid subject of knowledge. This is also very important. Earlier on, it was believed that why we should not pay attention to these worldly affairs, because the most important thing is your salvation, attainment of, unity with God, all those things. Even in India also, that these things were, and they are still believed in, that whatever happens to you in this world is not very important, but whatever happens to you in the world above, that is in the metaphysical, or I don't know, the life after death, whatever, that is very important. That was the earlier belief. And now with scholasticism, people start giving recognition to the world as a valid subject of knowledge. So they start feeling that it's important to know what is happening in the country which is adjacent to your country. It's important to know what is beyond the Mediterranean Sea, for example, or it's important to know how our body functions. It's important to know why leaves are green and why fruit are round in shape. All these things will gain importance when we go ahead with the processes of Renaissance, wherein people's efforts in creation of knowledge are branching out in all sorts of directions. But suffice it to say here that scholasticism is an ideology. It's a methodology, really, not ideology, which gives importance to word as a valid subject of knowledge. Of course, there is criticism, as the third point says, too much emphasis on words and interpretations and so on and so forth. But at least the idea that we should ask questions, as Utkarsh rightly pointed out, asking of questions gets validity. Asking of questions, the idea of rationality, they get some kind of a prestige, they get some kind of a validation because of scholasticism, which leads to the rise of various universities in all these places, Bologna being one of the earliest. Okay, we'll stop the English this discussion here, and I'll